Now, I watched this Matt Dillahunty versus Inspiring Philosophy debate on God this past Saturday. And as I was hoping he was going to do, except I was hoping he would offer the stronger version than he wound up presenting, Inspiring Philosophy laid down his digital physics argument and his argument from cosmic consciousness. Now, the arguments that he presented in his debate with Matt Dillahunty are not actually the strongest versions of these arguments. If you go to his channel, he's got a section on quantum mechanics, dealing with physics, quantum mechanics, things like that, cosmic consciousness, that's actually really, really interesting. There are about 5 videos on there that are really strong, really well worth your time. I strongly recommend them. So he was laying down a version of this for Matt Dillahunty's for Matt Dillahunty to consider and try to take objection to. Now, one of the things, let's just clear up right at the start. Once we start entering into the realm of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, okay? And if we are and I haven't started fully engaging with this yet because I'm still very new to the subject and I'm a layperson when it comes to physics. But one thing is clear. One thing is clear, and this has been clear since the 30s. There are deep philosophical, deep theological implications to quantum mechanics. That is clear. Now, if you go to Inspiring Philosophy's channel, he's got 5 or so videos on the subject. There is a reason. There is a reason why your woo artists and your new agers and your Deepak Chopras and people like that get all moist in the panties when you start talking about quantum mechanics. Why? Because there are deep theological implications to quantum mechanics. Those theological implications have been fairly obvious since the 30s. There's a reason. There's a whole history here. Now, I'm a layperson on the subject, but I can tell you I can give you the big reference points, and you can go look it up for yourself. You'll see that I'm telling you the truth, or at least some variation thereof. There's a reason why Einstein struggled with quantum mechanics when they first showed up on the scene. Now, for example, there's such a thing known as quantum entanglements, okay? To try to describe in the simplest, most layman terms. Quantum entanglements, it's kind of like if you have 2 entangled particles, you can affect a particle over here, and an entangled particle can be on the other side of the galaxy and somehow seemingly corresponds to the action. And this used to trip out Einstein. He called this spooky action at a distance. Okay, and it tripped him out. Why? Because it seems to defy physics as it was understood. Quantum mechanics is deeply counterintuitive, and there are aspects of quantum mechanics that seem to defy the law of actual Newtonian physics. That don't seem to make sense, and they didn't quite make sense to Einstein. So he struggled with this. Now, how they have come to understand. Now, this is real science, and this isn't the science that most atheists are super gay for. This isn't methodological naturalism. This isn't science circa 1905 Stone Age science. You know, most of the time when atheists are talking about science, they're really, really enamored with science, you know, the science that built a tall building. This is much more intense, and this is much more on point. This is a science that powers your cell phone. And as far as I know, everything I'm telling you is the God's honest truth about at least the broad strokes. Again, I'm not a physicist, so take everything I say with a grain of salt and go check it for yourself. But these are the theological implications. These are the broad strokes of quantum mechanics, as I understand them. So the reason why physicists came to understand that quantum mechanics actually works is because they backed it all up with experiments. It's been proven. And this is the science that powers your cell phone. So they put them to practical applications and they backed them up by experiments. They still don't quite understand why some of the things in quantum mechanics actually work, because they don't seem to. They seem counterintuitive. But, like I said, deep theological implications. Just one example. And again, I'm not a physicist, so if someone's a physicist and an atheist, smarty boots atheist, probably go, this isn't up to date, Craig, blah, 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 and, you know, it might be right. But as far as my understanding is of today, for example, there's no such thing as space. No such thing as space. Space isn't space. Space is actually an energy field. It's called the Higgs field. And what looked like space in the 30s and people understood as empty space and that's all space was. They're now starting to understand or theorize that space is actually an electromagnetic field that permeates all of reality. Now, do you understand why that would make a New Ager moisten the panties? Because I do. Because I've read the Hindu scriptures, okay? And I've read the Tao Te Ching. And both of those things sound suspiciously like, in the Hindu scriptures, you have two iterations of Brahman. You have Brahman as being, which is very similar to Yahweh in the Old Testament, kind of the same thing. I'll talk about that in videos to come. And then you have Brahman as energy field that permeates all of reality. Okay, it sounds exactly like the physics. That's the point. That's why Deepak Chopra keeps going quantum mechanics, this and that, because it seems to back up a certain type of spiritual woo artistry. Now, that's the actual physics, though. The Higgs field is the actual theory of the actual physicists, and as far as my understanding is, it is knowledge. It's actual knowledge of what constitutes space. It sounds exactly like the Tao Te Ching, and it sounds exactly like certain types of Hindu spiritual texts. That's why New Agers get all, like I said, moisten the panties when they start talking about quantum mechanics, because it seems to back up what they've been saying. So you're thinking to me, okay, Craig, well, what's this got to do with your particular sky fairy? Okay, it also has implications for my particular sky fairy. Yeah, your God's so weak you can't even participate in quantum mechanics. Okay, well, there are also implications for my Christian faith. Now, one of the things that gets argued, and I don't want to lose everybody, but I might. One of the things get argued by your more highbrow, highfalutin atheists out there, your more cerebral atheists. Let's just take Stephanie, okay? Stephanie has pointed out in some of her videos on the subject of God. Stephanie, ew, I can't believe it. Yes, Stephanie, that God is immanent and transcendent. Transcendent meaning stands outside of space and time, eternal, awesome and majestic and standing outside of space and time and eternal. Immanent is Jesus Christ, the only Son of God. Hallelujah to the Lamb of God. Jesus is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Stands, immanent means reachable on human terms. Now, your smarter, higher-brow atheist has often argued that these two things are logically contradictory. That you can't have both in the same time because it contradicts, basic reality. Well, what we are starting to find by quantum mechanics, the theological implications of, no, that's not true. They aren't logically contradictory. For example, in light, in physics, light exists as both particle and wave at the same time. They don't fully understand how, but it does. They can give you experiments to show you that light is both wave and particle. I think they call it the wave-particle duality. So, we find that immanent and transcendent are actually two categories that can exist at the exact same time, even though that seems to defy logic as we understand it, because there is a side to logic, call it fuzzy logic, there's a side to logic that's deeply counterintuitive that we don't quite fully understand yet. And while there may be laws that we can put together to understand, for example, quantum mechanics, they seem to defy, or they seem at least counterintuitive to what we understand as the laws that govern the universe, standard physics, Newtonian physics, the laws that govern the universe today. That's actually all true, what I just said. If it seems a little bit too whatever, seems a little bit too, in the realm of the philosophically abstract and esoteric, it actually isn't. Everything I said kind of makes sense, and you can play it back slowly and see that I didn't really say anything that isn't readily available to someone if you just think about what I said and play it slowly. So, the idea that God is both immanent and transcendent, a seemingly logically contradictory idea, we find out when the theological implications of quantum mechanics points us to the idea that this is totally possible and, a matter of fact, plausible. Because there are plenty of things like light, for example, that has dual properties at the same time, can exist as both wave and particle at the exact same time. Nobody clearly understands this. Nobody clearly understands quantum mechanics. The only thing that's going on right now in the field of quantum mechanics, as far as I know, and again, I'm a layperson, so take this all with a grain of salt. Because somebody could come, there could be things being published today that take issue with what I'm saying. But as far as I know, everything I'm telling you is the God's honest truth. So there is no contradiction. There's no seeming contradiction between a being being transcendent and immanent at the exact same time, because they do not understand how light can be both particle and wave at the same time. But they've done plenty of experiments, and they basically have proven that. As far as science is concerned, that's knowledge. That's not guessing. Higgs field, I'm not sure if that actually constitutes knowledge as of this hearing. It may still be theoretical. But that theoretical is what gets all the New Agers, all giddy. And that's only one. If you want to go into this deeper, just write religion and science. Physics, spiritual, physics, science. You got to sift through, because there's a lot of woo artistry in here, in that particular area. But if you kind of, halfway perceptive, you can kind of weed out what's woo quackery and what's legitimate physics. And then you can always reference the legitimate physics and see, in fact, if you're dealing with legitimate physics. It's not really all that complicated. It just takes some doing. That's why I don't really make a lot of videos on the subject right now, because I'm not really quite up to speed on it. I'm not completely fluent in this area yet, but I will be. The only thing to point out is that there are arguments coming down the pike. Arguments that inspiring philosophy is the first of many to come, where there are arguments rooted in physics. Now, one of the things he did that was really smart is he wasn't arguing for the Christian God. Somebody pointed this out in another commentary. He's arguing for a deistic sort of generic God-like entity, mind-like qualities of the universe itself. That's actually an achievable goal. I've pointed this out. And those arguments are coming, and those arguments are coming, and they're going to be pretty convincing and pretty solid. Why? Because that's what the physics are actually pointing to. That's what the physics are actually pointing to. Not Ken Ham. Ken Ham's, I told you, feel them in your heart. It's not that. It's the actual physics seem to be alluding to the fact that there is a mind-like quality to the universe itself. And there's a lot of other stuff going on. But again, I'm not quite ready to be fluent on it yet. So, that is all for now. It's an interesting debate. That is all for now, kids. The mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.